Meghan Markle's recent attempts to step into the business world have been nothing short of chaotic. What was supposed to be the start of her businesswoman era has quickly turned into a public relations disaster. First, there's the product, a jam, or more accurately, a spread that looks more like tomato sauce than anything resembling fruit preserve. The hype surrounding it, Overblown. The product didn't just flop in the taste department, it failed to live up to even the most basic expectations of a jam. Then there's the show. Meghan's attempt to launch a show that would showcase her talents fell apart in under a week. It didn't capture the audience, and the reviews were brutal. In just a matter of days, the buzz around it fizzled out, leaving behind a trail of disappointed viewers and harsh critiques. But the real kicker, Meghan doesn't seem to think it's the products or the performance that's the problem. It's us, the audience. Apparently, we're the ones getting it all wrong, not the products she's putting out. With all the wrong moves, it's hard not to wonder, is she really that out of touch? Or is this just a poorly executed attempt at a business venture? Let's dive deeper into the first major flop, that infamous Bloomberg-Interview. The Bloomberg-Interview was supposed to be Meghan Markle's big moment, a chance to prove she could transition from royal life into the business world with ease. The title alone promised a deep dive. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, on life and business beyond the royal spotlight. We expected insights, maybe a few hard-earned lessons, or even some gritty business wisdom from a woman who's now claiming to be an entrepreneur. Instead, what we got was a strange mix of irrelevant anecdotes and vague, unconvincing statements. Meghan kicked things off with a recycled story about dish soap from her childhood. While it might have been a cute moment for a family dinner, it did nothing to build credibility as a businesswoman. Then came an odd rant about pantyhoses. Definitely not a topic that screams CEO energy. But the real problem wasn't just the irrelevant stories. It was the complete lack of substance when it came to her supposed business ventures. Meghan dodged any questions about the actual sales numbers, offering up vague claims like, "We went from a few thousand units to 1 million," without any context. No breakdowns of challenges faced, no insight into marketing strategies, just a superficial claim of success. This interview, which was meant to showcase Meghan as a savvy businesswoman, instead left us with more questions than answers. And that wasn't the only thing she missed. The lack of any real discussion about the products themselves, the pricing, the target audience, the goals, left her business venture looking more like a hobby than a serious entrepreneurial effort. In the end, this interview wasn't the PR triumph she hoped for. It was more like a crash course in how not to do business media. Let's talk about that jam, Meghan Markle's so-called hero product. She teased it for over a year, dropping cryptic images on Instagram, building up anticipation with posts that promised something revolutionary. Fans and followers were led to believe they were about to witness a game-changing product. Instead, they got a watery spread in a jar that, to be blunt, doesn't even come close to meeting the basic expectations of a jam. The spread itself. It looked like tomato sauce. And the taste. Well, let's just say it wasn't exactly what anyone was hoping for when they thought of jam. This wasn't an innovative, boundary-pushing product. It was a failed attempt to sell a glorified ketchup in a jar, all for a whopping $9. Let that sink in. $9 for a spread that you can't even find in stores, with no real demand behind it, and that doesn't even taste good. Sure, people bought it initially, but let's be real here. It wasn't because they were dying to spread it on toast. No, it was curiosity that drove those first few sales. Curiosity mixed with the media hype and the royal branding attached to it. Journalists, influencers, and critics alike were eager to review it, which is what led to the brief spike in sales. But once the novelty wore off, the truth came crashing in. Without the media frenzy, sales stalled, and there were no glowing reviews to keep the momentum going. Meghan was quick to tout how the product was a success, but when pressed about the numbers, she dodged the question completely. How exactly did it go from a few thousand units to 1 million? Was it the units sold, units produced, or just some vague Instagram impressions? The details weren't clear. And that lack of transparency only made the whole venture seem more like a PR stunt than a legitimate business effort. The bottom line, the jam wasn't a breakthrough. It was a reminder that just because you slap a royal label on a jar, it doesn't mean you can sell anything. If Meghan Markle's product launch and interview weren't enough of a mess, her PR strategy only added to the confusion. Instead of focusing on building momentum or spacing out her releases to maximize visibility, she crammed everything into one chaotic media blitz. She dropped her jam, the With Love Meghan show, and the highly anticipated Bloomberg-Interview all on the same day. Now, anyone with experience in marketing knows that this isn't how you build a brand. Good PR isn't about flooding the timeline with everything at once. It's about pacing, creating anticipation, and keeping the public engaged over time. But Meghan, for reasons that remain unclear, decided to throw it all at us at once, hoping to drown out the negative reviews about her show. Some people say it was a deliberate tactic to create a distraction. The idea was simple: flood the media with so much noise that people wouldn't focus too much on the fact that the show was tanking. But as we've seen time and time again, this type of overkill rarely works. Instead of blurring the lines, it just made everything feel rushed and disjointed. The show didn't magically improve because of the extra buzz. It just added more headlines for people to ignore. And let's be clear, this wasn't a seamless, calculated strategy. It felt more like scrambling to make up for everything falling apart. The timeline method might have seemed like a good idea on paper, but in practice, it only highlighted the disorganization behind it all. The result: her show tanked, her jam wasn't selling, and her attempts at controlling the narrative only made the flaws more glaring. If there's one thing Meghan Markle has mastered, it's deflecting blame. In her Bloomberg interview, she took no responsibility for the failings of her business ventures or the lack of genuine connection with her audience. Instead, she blamed the media for distorting her image, claiming it wasn't her that people criticized, it was the fake version of her created by the press. This victim mentality is starting to wear thin. Sure, the media can be harsh, but let's not pretend that Meghan hasn't contributed to her own narrative. From the Oprah interview to the Netflix docuseries, she's crafted a story of hardship and victimization, one that feels more like a carefully curated image than an authentic portrayal. And when things don't go as planned, she turns the tables and shifts the blame. It's never about taking accountability for her actions. It's always about pointing the finger elsewhere. By now, we've all seen the contradictions. Meghan claims to be misunderstood, but her words and actions tell a different story. She built her brand around authenticity, but when faced with criticism, she's quick to say it's all the result of some elaborate media smear campaign. It's like watching someone crash a car, only to blame the mirror for reflecting the wreck. This is where Meghan's disconnect becomes most evident. She wants to be seen as a relatable, grounded figure, a woman who's real and just like the rest of us. But every time she blames the media or anyone else for her failures, she drifts further away from that image. Until she owns up to her role in this mess, the only thing people will remember is the constant deflection. And that's a problem she can't PR her way out of. Meghan Markle is stuck in a bit of an identity crisis, one that she can't seem to shake off no matter how hard she tries to reinvent herself. On one hand, she clings to the title of Duchess, relishing the royal branding and the prestige it provides. The title adds weight to everything she does, whether it's in interviews, product launches, or even in her attempts at entrepreneurship. It gives her a sense of authority, a kind of cachet that comes with the royal image, and it's clear she's not ready to let go of it. But on the other hand, Meghan wants to be seen as a relatable, everyday entrepreneur. She paints herself as the grounded mom running a business from her home in Montecito, trying to connect with the average person. But this is where the contradiction lies. You can't claim to be just like everyone else when your life is far from relatable. The private chefs, stylists, publicists, and the fact that your every move is scrutinized by the media make it almost impossible for her to connect with anyone who doesn't live in the same rarefied world. When asked about whether being a duchess makes it harder to be relatable, Meghan brushes it off as if the question itself is ridiculous. But let's face it, being a duchess does make it harder to relate to the average person. And that's not an insult, it's just reality. Most people aren't living in mansions with full staffs and private jets. Most people aren't jumping from curated magazine features to exclusive interviews while claiming to be real and authentic. Meghan may want to be seen as the cool mom or the entrepreneurial spirit, but her lifestyle and her image constantly clash with that desire. Until Meghan can reconcile these two sides of her persona, the royal figure and the everyday entrepreneur, it's going to be hard for people to take her seriously in either role. One of the most recurring lines Meghan Markle keeps coming back to is the assertion that she's a real person. And while that might sound humble on the surface, it's become a bit of a crutch, something she leans on whenever things aren't going her way. In her most recent interviews, when asked to define herself or explain what she wants the world to know about her, Meghan simply replies, "I'm a real person." But here's the thing. Being a real person doesn't automatically make you relatable, especially when everything you say and do is so carefully crafted. It's almost like she's asking us to forget about the public persona she's built, the curated social media posts, the years spent in the royal spotlight. That's not how authenticity works. Authenticity is about consistency, about being the same person in private as you are in public. Meghan might be a real person, but her actions and contradictions don't exactly reflect the authenticity she claims to possess. Instead of owning up to her mistakes, taking responsibility for her failures, or acknowledging how her actions have affected others, Meghan hides behind the real person excuse. It's an easy a way to avoid the hard truths. In a moment where she could have shown growth, humility, and even vulnerability, Meghan chose to repeat her well-worn narrative. The world misunderstands her. The media distorts her image, and she's just trying to live her life. What she misses, though, is that being real doesn't mean simply stating it over and over again. It's about showing it. And when the same rehearsed victimhood keeps creeping up, it makes it harder for people to believe in the so-called real Meghan. If anything, it just makes her seem out of touch with the reality everyone else is living. If there's one thing that has consistently defined Meghan Markle's public persona, it's her crusade against social media platforms, particularly Meta. She's publicly condemned these platforms for their lack of fact-checking, their role in spreading misinformation, and the harm they cause to children's mental health. Her stance was clear. Social media, particularly Instagram and Facebook, are dangerous and irresponsible, fostering a culture of negativity and manipulation. But here's where it gets interesting. Meghan now finds herself building her brand on the very same platform she once vilified. She's back on Instagram, promoting her products and curating her image for a large, engaged audience. Exactly the kind of platform she once accused of enabling harm. She even used Instagram to market her controversial jam, which, to be fair, sold primarily because of her celebrity status, not because it was in any way revolutionary. This is where the hypocrisy becomes glaring. Meghan and Harry's whole public brand has been built around holding certain institutions, especially big corporations and social media companies, accountable for their actions. Yet, when it suits their needs, they conveniently forget their criticisms and embrace the same platforms they once claimed were destroying society. So, which is it? Are these platforms evil, or are they just useful tools when it's time to cash in? The inconsistency in Meghan's approach is jarring. She wants to project an image of integrity, standing up for what's right, but her actions often contradict her words. The very platforms she criticized are now the channels through which she's trying to shape her narrative, and that's a problem. People are not just questioning her products, they're questioning her values. This lack of clarity in her stance leaves her looking opportunistic at best, hypocritical at worst. Until she takes a consistent, honest stand, the public won't buy into her message. They'll just see someone who wants to have it both ways, criticizing social media when it's convenient and then embracing it when it benefits her brand. Meghan Markle's brand, both personal and professional, has always been built around a carefully curated image. The problem is, people can see right through it. Her attempts at being a powerful, relatable entrepreneur fall flat because there's one thing missing: authenticity. Instead of offering a real, grounded narrative about her journey, Meghan continues to perform, hoping that the world will buy into her story without ever addressing the underlying contradictions. The issue isn't that Meghan is trying to build a business or even make a name for herself outside of the royal spotlight. It's that everything she does feels rehearsed. From the canned interviews to the overly polished social media posts, her recent attempts to present herself as a real person fall short because they lack the self-awareness and humility needed to connect with people on a deeper level. People don't want to hear the same tired lines about how misunderstood she is. They want to see someone who owns their mistakes, someone who can take accountability and still stand tall. But every time Meghan faces criticism, she doubles down on the same defensive narrative. She plays the victim, blaming the media, the public, or the royal family, but never herself. This performance is exhausting for people, especially when it's clear she's not owning up to the reality of her situation. Her business ventures are struggling, not because people are jealous of her success, but because they're tired of the act. The royal title, the celebrity status, and the media coverage, they can only carry her so far. At some point, people stop listening to the story and start questioning the storyteller. When Meghan repeatedly dodges responsibility and refuses to acknowledge the real reasons behind her brand's struggles, it's no longer about her business. It's about her inability to stop performing for the cameras. And that's what's driving people away. The act is wearing thin, and people are starting to tune out. If she truly wants to succeed, she needs to stop hiding behind the performance and show up as a real person, flaws and all. Only then will her audience believe in her. Meghan Markle's struggle to establish herself as a legitimate businesswoman isn't just about failed products or a flopping show. It's about a deeper issue of authenticity. Her brand is stalling because people aren't buying into the persona she's trying to sell. Whether it's her jam, her show, or her constant deflection of blame, the common thread is clear. There's a lack of transparency, accountability, and self-awareness. The public doesn't dislike her because she's successful or because of her royal background. They're frustrated because they feel like they're being sold a performance, not the real Meghan. Her attempts to balance the title of Duchess with her image as a grounded entrepreneur only highlight the contradictions in her narrative. She wants to be both the relatable, cool mom and the prestigious royal, but those identities simply don't mesh in a way that feels authentic to the average person. Until Meghan can own her missteps, acknowledge the challenges of building a business, and stop hiding behind the "I'm a real person" monologue, her brand will continue to struggle. Being real doesn't mean claiming it, it means showing it. And for Meghan, that's where the real work begins.